started this project with many questions about how people understand and spend time in social public spaces. I was curious about this because it seems that our society continues to provide fewer options for this and more asocial alternatives. To explore this, I surveyed peers about their current experiences of public spaces and social connection, and synthesized this with my own literary research on how theorists and filmmakers have reflected on and represented the public world and the social interaction it encapsulates over time. The social norms that exist around how we spend time in public spaces and with others are not often talked about, and our perspectives on when to subject ourselves to new vulnerable experiences and when to retreat into privacy are determined by so many factors, from peer behaviors and environments to childhood and self-perception. These complications make it difficult, especially for younger generations, to understand how sociability over time has changed. But if we do not pay attention to these trends as they unfold, they have really significant implications.
So first things first, what is public space? The word public has been used to describe governmental infrastructure, stock market exchanges, and much more. And so many structures, from planning to law, revolve around that ever-evading concept of the public good. In this case, the best way to understand the public realm is by understanding its opposite. While the private realm is all I as an individual own and can maintain, my home, my spaces, the public is everything outside of this. The public realm can be so many things. It can be uncomfortable, dynamic, spontaneous, diverse, new, invigorating, overwhelming, and so much more. We've grown particularly attached to private space and the conveniences it provides. But we need so much more than that. Not too long ago, this wasn't even a question. There was no way to live a life without leaving the home. But how has this changed over time? I don't have all the answers, but I have seen how my peers and society alike have been impacted by decreases in social interaction and prioritization of private spaces. So what factors specifically impact this? And more importantly, what do we lose when we forget to acknowledge the importance and value of the world around us? I'm definitely not the first to think about these issues and the values of public space. And it is not at all new that technologies have impacted the way that people live. But today represents a unique example of this, as technology and other societal forces continue to increase in speed exponentially, impacting us in both visible and invisible ways. My research began by taking a step back. So much of what makes public interaction meaningful is the quotidian, the day-to-day, but this is often overlooked as time moves forward. To look deeply at what we need socially and how our ability to attain this has changed over time, I looked at narrative films that show characters defined by positive public experiences and contrasted these across genres with opposite characterizations of isolation, fear, and paranoia. I also focused on William White's film, The Social Lives of Small Urban Spaces, and other older pieces of media that highlight and appreciate an older era of urban socialization and experience that seems distant and almost utopian today.
In tandem with my other research, it is clear that social cohesion impacts so many things, namely, personal health and well-being. We need connection to others to be happy and healthy, but more and more people today struggle to find this. A 2021 study found that 49% of American adults have fewer than 3 close friends, almost doubling between 1990 and 2021. This has been called a loneliness epidemic and has very significant impacts on mental health and well-being. Next, communal functions, from politics to conflict resolution and stewardship. When we are able to interact and connect more, it helps us solve problems better. And finally, sustainability. The sharing of resources and energy is key to decreasing our carbon emissions and environmental impacts. A 2021 study found that if the U.S. hadn't prohibited more dense development so widely, the average household's energy demand would be 27% to 47% lower. While the number of single-family homes available is directly determined by zoning laws, it is also the result of deeply held beliefs that favor the privacy of single-family homes and fear the interaction and complications of denser housing arrangements. If we are to come to terms with the larger impacts of these more private ways of living on well-being, civic efficacy, and environmental sustainability, it becomes clear that this lifestyle must be reevaluated. So how can we better interact with and design our public and private worlds to improve this? Moving toward a healthier and more communal world requires action on many scales, but the individual efforts we make to be more connected to those around us can make a big difference. In response to what I heard from peers and research, I created a list of the top things to keep in mind when spending time in public space.
It's easy to take things too seriously, but when we allow ourselves to take a step back and have a little fun, it goes a long way. In his documentary, William White acknowledges the street performers and other people who draw others' attention and applauds how they bring people together. This goes hand in hand with the next point. In many survey responses and conversations with peers, people describe how an event, moment, or activity can bring people together in public where they wouldn't normally feel connected. I choose to call these it moments. These can be anything. The chorus of Backdoor on a bus when the driver forgets, live music playing, helping someone out, asking for directions, friendly competition, entertainment, education, or anything else that creates a shared parallel experience or understanding. When we jump on these, an otherwise unwelcome space can become comfortable and friendly. When I began this project, I was inspired by the concept of the Agora and the importance of the big bustling space like the market or town square where all forms of action and interaction occur. However, in my research, I realized that we actually need many publics, not just this crowded bustle. Public spaces to be alone, places to be anonymous, to share with a friend, intimate publics. My earlier binary definition of a public shouldn't be taken too seriously, as the non-private is not a single way of being. Many different types of spaces can be public. And we need all of these, from time spent with the closest family and friends to the bustle of the outside world. And finally, as I heard what people felt about public spaces and why they might avoid them, one topic always came up: the concept of safety. To some extent, we are biologically wired to protect ourselves and kin at the closest sign of danger. But there are many ways today that overly paranoid or judgmental regard to spaces or people that feel uncomfortable is harmful. Whether you are worried about someone's abnormal or unhealthy behavior impacting you, or anxious about judgment of others in social situations, it is always valuable to keep in mind what will actually make all of us more safe.
Throughout this project, I found this subject matter to be elusive and complex. But as I looked at the relationship between public and private space, I knew that I wanted to engage others in reevaluating their own thoughts on the subject. However, it was difficult to really describe this in just words and statistics. To create something engaging and interesting that approached perceptions of public and private space in a nuanced way, I chose to compile a multimedia zine. My final project, Agora, Volume 1, is a collection of poems, photos, short stories, prompts, and more by me and fellow peers, each about the ways that we relate to public and private spaces and how we can rethink our fears and discomforts surrounding them to see how important public space and social interaction are to each of us. My research showed me how significant and structural the social problems we are experiencing are, but we can only approach these when we are able to recognize and explore these ideas in active and creative ways individually. I hope that this study and larger approach to how we relate to others will be taken seriously into the future, as we and our children each deserve to be cared for and care for others as we define ourselves in a changing world.